In this example, I've launched the AWS Learner Academy Lab, and I want to go through the tasks that are going to be required for the week 3 assignment. So we've launched the Learner Academy Lab. I'm going to go out to AWS, and specifically within AWS, I want to go to EC2. So I'm looking at EC2. And then under instances, I have a couple of instances. I've worked through a couple of things with this, but ultimately what I'm going to want to do is I want to programmatically launch an EC2 instance. So I'm just simulating this. So when I click on that launch button, it gives me a couple of options. The one required thing that I'm going to have to set is this name. So I have to name my instance. So Brian's instance. And then I'm going to select the Amazon machine image. So the Amazon machine image is basically determining what operating system and software is going to be on your EC2 virtual machine. Okay, and that's determined by this AMI, this Amazon machine image. So depending on which operating system I select, so I can select Ubuntu or Windows or Red Hat or SUSE Linux or Debian, right? There's all sorts of different options that I'd have there, okay, depending on what I would choose. For our purposes, for our lab, we're going to use Amazon Linux. Okay, I'm going to confirm that. And I don't know what happened there, but I'm going to go back to launch instances. So I name it Brian's instance. Okay, and I want Amazon Linux, and then this AMI is going to be important. Okay, and there's a couple of different options that are going to be free tier eligible. So I'm just thinking about the required parameters, right? So the name is a required parameter. The Amazon machine image is a required parameter. The instance type, right, depending on how much virtual hardware that I actually want to purchase and use, is going to be a required thing. Okay, and then if I want to access it, I'm going to need a key pair, but I'm mostly skipping that. The security group I'm skipping. The networking settings and firewall settings I'm skipping over. The storage configuration I'm skipping over. The only thing I really need to fill out is the name, the machine image, and then the instance type. All the other stuff I can handle after the fact. Okay, so if I have my name, I go ahead and launch the instance. I'm going to proceed without a key pair. Okay, and I go back over to my instances. What you'll see is that instance is getting initialized. And this instance state, right now it's showing running, but that instance state will change depending on where it's at in the startup sequence. So it goes from, hey, I clicked on go ahead and launch the instance. It goes into a pending state while it's launching. And then eventually, once it's fully launched, it goes into this running state. Same thing when I take the instance state and toggle it to stop the instance. Okay, so just a couple of notes about these instances. When they're running, I'm getting charged for basically utilizing those AWS resources. When the instance state is stopped, I'm basically saying to Amazon, like, I want you to pause this virtual EC2 instance. I don't want to get billed for it, but I may start it up later, so I don't want to lose the work that I've done inside of that EC2 instance. So if I stop the instance, I'm just going to go ahead and show you this. I'm going to say, go ahead and stop it. Okay, and I'm going to refresh the user interface. You'll notice it goes to an instance state of stopping, and then eventually that instance state will go to stopped. Okay, so it's stopping right now, and depending on how long that shutdown sequence takes, eventually that instance state will be stopped. And then once it's stopped, Okay, I'm just reloading this. So once it's stopped, then I have the option to terminate this instance. And when I terminate the instance, just to clarify the difference between stopped and terminated, stopped means I want to keep those resources in the AWS data center. I want my virtual hard drive to exist. So if I installed software or created some files or did any work on that virtual instance, those files would be preserved across stop and starts. If I decide, hey, you know what, I no longer need this server at all, I'm never going to use it again, the data that's on there might be corrupt or it's a throwaway thing, I can choose to terminate the instance, and basically that's me communicating to Amazon that I'm never going to use that, I don't care, I'm not going to recover the data, you can go ahead and terminate that instance. Okay, so EC2, we're getting charged by the hour, so I want to make sure that I have instances that I actually do care about. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm really disciplined about making sure that I have instances that are started and stopped efficiently so that I'm not getting those hourly charges. And again, the instances that we're using are on a free tier. They're very small instances. They're very little virtual hardware with a free operating system. So the software that we install is mostly free software. But what I will say is that I can choose to scale that way up. I can choose pay for service software, and I can also choose a lot of virtual hardware, and those hourly charges really do add up quickly. So you want to be very responsible about managing your EC2 instances. If you don't need them, make sure that you are then terminating them or stopping them at the very least to make sure that you're not incurring charges that you don't expect. Okay, so what our goal is in terms of working with EC2 is if we go back over to the dashboard, we want to launch an instance, and based on the instance, what we want to do is we want to select an Amazon machine image. So we want to do a search for a particular Amazon machine image, and then launch an instance based on that Amazon machine image, and we're going to choose an instance type. Okay, so first of all, we have to determine what the Amazon machine image is, and then once we do, we want to launch an EC2 instance of a specific instance type. Okay, so in our case, we're going to use Amazon Linux. The instance type that we want, I think, is a T3 micro instance, but I'll have to verify that. And then what I want to do is I want to control that instance state programmatically. I want to start and stop that instance to make sure that I'm able to control those events. Okay, and I want to do that all programmatically. Okay, so that's the goal of week 3, is to be able to work with these EC2 instances through our Python code.